Happy Thursday, Facebook friends. Welcome back to Facebook. I'm Angie Garza, Director of Professional Learning and Educational Services at ROE 47, serving Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside counties. And if you're joining us back here this fine Thursday at the start of the 2023-24 school year, here on Facebook, you'll know that it's time for another edition of Teacher Talk. And as we kick off our morning together, I am so happy to welcome back to our Teacher Talk platform my friend, colleague, and co-host, Digital Teaching and Learning Specialist, Ms. Stacy Dingus. Good morning, Stacy. Welcome back to school. Welcome to fall. Welcome to all the things.
Good morning, Angie. Happy to be here as always. Yes, we are back to school. We are feeling it in every aspect of our life, right? Our kids are back to school. We're getting back into that schedule and that routine. Our teachers are getting back into probably what sometimes feels like overwhelming, meeting the needs of their students. Our administrators are dealing with new staff. We at the ROE are dealing with new programming. We have a new office, so that's exciting. All of the new things are hitting us all at once. One of my favorite things about this position, Angie, is that as I have been at the ROE for a couple of years now, we have been introduced to some really dynamic, great people that kind of open doors and open your eyes to things that you haven't thought about before, or maybe making you face some things that you know are there and that you need to address head on. And so it's exciting to start our teacher talk today by a friendly face of the ROE. I'll let you give the official introduction.
I just have to smile when you were kind of talking about our guest for this morning, Mr. Toney. You are so right. Tom has just kind of become a fixture in our lives here at the office, specifically working with some of our educators and our own team as part of our Pathway program. So he's come and challenged, he's been able to challenge our thinking on quite a few things and really kind of get us to think about how we operate as a team and who we are as people. And so Tom is actually coming back to our area to work with some of our administrators as we kind of kick off and work our way through the 2023-24 school year. So that was really long-winded to say, Tom, welcome to Teacher Talk. And, you know, you're one of my favorite people that we always have come in to work with us. As I said, to challenge our thinking, to better our practice and who we are as people and professionals. So I'm going to let you kick us off with telling us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do, because you don't just come in and work with our team. You work with teams from all different walks of life, all across the United States. So, and I think even abroad. So tell us more. Tell us more.
Well, first of all, let me just say thank you for letting me be on Teacher Talk. This is an absolute blast, super treat for me. And Angie, I reflect right back to you, both you and Stacy, that I absolutely love working with your team. Anytime that we can get together, spend some time together, I always look forward to it. You know, I do quite a lot of coaching, both on the corporate level, on the educational level. We do a lot of work with students on the student level, coaching level, all of those types of things. And I have to say that working with your team is absolutely a highlight for me. Really enjoy it. And really looking forward to what's going to happen starting this fall. You know, getting into the Administrators Academy, what that's going to look like over the next year. So super pumped to kind of dig into all of that as well. But a little bit about me, I guess. I've been married for 31 years to my amazing wife, Kathy. We have 3 children. They are 21, 16, and 12. So we're still in the thick of all of it. And our oldest son, Grant, is 21, and he's going to be married in the next few months. And we were just sort of chatting a little bit ago about parenting and what an incredibly new season that's going to be for us. So we're anticipating, we have no idea what that's going to be like walking through that. We're super excited for him and his fiance. But wow, you know, for us as parents, we absolutely love our family. And it's going to be different to kind of watch him step out into that on his own. But this is what we prepare them for, right? And this is why we do the work that we do, is to help get them ready for that reality. So we love the national parks. We're national parks geeks. We travel almost annually to as many national parks as we can. We are at 39 now. and we're on our way to hitting all 64. By the time we get there, maybe there'll be more, but we're well on our way. That's a big part of our journey. I'm an avid cyclist, love to cycle, ride thousands of miles a year, and cycling. I really enjoy that, have for a good part of my life. And I love coaching. So what I get to do with my days, as you said, Angie, is very varied with the groups that I work with. But man, is it ever just a blast to stand in front of people who are on a journey, that are maybe trying to figure some things out, maybe trying to gain traction in some areas. It's a passion for me. As a friend of mine and I say, that's the juice of life for us. That's being able to help pull what is inside of somebody out and then build some processes and systems around it for success. It's just a lot of fun. And so that's what I look forward to doing in the Administrators Academy. We work with, so our organization works with a lot of students. We have a whole system built around helping to develop the leadership and character of students. That's all across the US now. We are just launching into the UK. So we're super excited about that. This fall, we have organizations coming online in the UK that are using our system and become a part of our ecosystem. So the way we work is, what we've developed is not something you go buy off a shelf and implement. We come alongside and we partner with our organizations and we help to train them up, coach them up, and then we're in a relationship for their entire journey. So we launched in the UK. We actually are in conversations right now with organizations in Lebanon, Beirut, Lebanon, and also in Brazil. And we're super excited about seeing those things start to take off in those areas. Do a lot of work with education organizations, teachers, administrators, have done a lot of coaching and development with them. We actually have an in-school resource for leadership and development, character development for students that we've put together as well. That's still sort of in the piloting phases. We're working with local schools to get that piloted and in place. So super excited about what that looks like. Social emotional work, mostly helping to mitigate behavioral issues, help with attendance, and then just helping students find their value and identity in sort of their academic journey, so that's our passion, is next generation. But that's a little bit, I guess, about me, maybe too much.
Tom, we had mentioned earlier that you have become a familiar face in our area for the ROE 47 area. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you have done with teachers and educational leaders in our area, and maybe some of the things that you have discovered through that work?
It's been great work. I've really enjoyed the experience. I'm a Midwest guy, right? Born and raised Ohio. So heading over to Illinois, Indiana, those regions is like that's still home for me. So gotten to meet a lot of great people, passionate people. People are passionate about education. And so I really enjoy working with the ROE team and then the teachers and administrators I've gotten to work with as a result of that. And so far in the districts, it's been just, like I say, great, high quality people. I think that what I've discovered is that we all share a common passion in wanting to sort of crack the code in motivating students, right? This is like the thing currently we're sort of in right now, is how do we really connect to the students in a way that causes them to see the value of their own academic journey, and as soon as possible, right? We're not just talking about high school students. We're talking about students of all ages. How do we tap into that passion that's inside of them? And I feel like what I've discovered is, whereas before in some of the work that I do, that was a bit of a foreign idea, like really truly on an emotional level, relational level, connecting with the students, discovering their passions, tethering those passions then to the academic journey, helping them to discover the value in what they're doing, rather than us just maybe telling them, hey, you need a good education, you need to pay attention, this is going to help you in the future. It's like helping them to see it in a personal way. I'm starting to see now that there's more common ground in that area. I think the bulk of what I've had to sort of start dealing with, and as all of us have over the past 3 years, especially, is the fallout of the pandemic, which really sort of accelerated some of the things that we were beginning to see just prior to the pandemic. Some of the issues with just if you break it down to just simplicity, just paying attention in the classroom, emotional regulation inside the classroom. We're already starting to see some hints toward that. And then the pandemic just sort of really accelerated those things. Some of the conversations I've had with psychologist friends of mine around this topic, what the way we've framed it is just like a wave that's been building, and now we're starting to feel the crash. And I remember a few years ago talking to some of them about what that might look like, and they were already talking about this idea that in 2, 3, 4 years, we're going to see sort of the crest and crash of the wave. And I think we're starting to experience that now. And that's been just some of my experience and things we've discovered. There's a stat that came out in, I think it was May of this year, that indicated the average student, and you guys might know a little bit about this, that indicated the average student was about a half a year behind in math and a third of the year behind in reading, just as a result of the interruption of the pandemic, right? So these are major things that have to be solved, and they have a huge impact on just the sort of the traditional approach, like what we might have expected kids where they might have been, they're not there. And so there's the academic side of that, but then there's also the emotional side of it. And what I've discovered, Stacy, to answer your question directly about working with the districts there, is that this has been a lot for the teachers to manage. Not just the behavioral issues that we're seeing really exaggerated, but also how do we make up this ground? And now how do we make it up while simultaneously trying to manage what's happening inside the classroom? So anyhow, that's some of the stuff that I think I've seen. I think I've also recognized a word that's been sort of marinating for me about this work is resiliency, right? Just really sort of recognizing the resiliency of the teachers. I've seen a lot of teachers and administrators. I think it's been impressive actually with the work I've done with ROE in your districts, that there's just a real resiliency. I've encountered several educators, a lot of teachers that are they're right on the edge. Am I going to continue? Some that were brand new to the profession, some that have been in it long tenured, but asking that question, is this for me? Can I continue in this? And just through conversations, I've been able to just kind of reinvigorate a passion. I think that's what I love the most about the work I get to do, is that when you come upon someone who has invested so much, it's something they care so deeply about, and now they're questioning, can I continue this? Can I keep doing this? And my question's always been for them, we can't afford for you not to. It's like we've got to discover a way to reignite that passion, and just to see the resiliency in them as we kind of walk through those conversations, I think is something that really has stood out for me. And if I could be just sort of personal about it here for a second, just real quick, and sort of an outsider's perspective, meaning I'm not in education on a daily basis. I'm not administrating a school or, overseeing a district or anything, but having developed systems for students to engage in that have been used inside the classroom and inside the school system, and from a coaching perspective, I think what I would love to see, and I'm hearing this, and that's why I mentioned it here, as you said, what have I discovered? I'm beginning to discover this undertone of a returning to roots. So this is a little bit of a conversation I'm beginning to hear, is how can we return to some of the simplistic roots of education? And is there room for us to reconsider some of the additional load we've had to take on in the classroom? And that's just, like I say, some undertones that I'm hearing. And I think that has to do with the resiliency. So fascinating conversations. Look forward to talking about those things more as we kind of go through the years ahead. But anyhow, just a not quick answer to your question, but yeah. So I'm curious, what do you hear in that? Like when I share that, what's resonating for you?
Well, I love that idea of resilience. And I know, when you talk about that being right on the ledge, I feel like there are many, and I think we could say this about educators and just people in general right now, with how they're responding to coming out of the pandemic and negotiating all of the complexities of life. As you said earlier, this is not, and none of these are new problems, but they were exacerbated, and or we've shown a light on some of the things that are happening in our communities. And so we are at a critical juncture, especially in education, as far as keeping those important educators and professionals in our field. And so there is a definite shortage, and we want to keep quality educators who do great things for kids. And so being responsive to that and daring to ask the question, what could we do differently? What could we do better? How could we rethink what we've always thought? I think that is a completely relevant and important question to ask as we move forward with education and building resilient communities for everybody involved. You know, Tom, when I think about that as well, I think about this idea of leadership, which kind of circles around to why you're going to be here with us throughout the year this year in 2023-24. You know, you have to have those visionary people, and you have to have people who are leading the charge. They're cheerleaders. They have that vision. They have that idea and understanding that this also takes a measure of accountability. When I talk about leadership, or when we think about leadership and what you just kind of shared about your discoveries, what is this idea of leadership, or I like to call it transformational leadership, which incidentally is the title of our Academy series for educational leaders this year, Transformational Leadership Academy. What is that idea of leadership or transformational leadership mean to you, and how maybe you're going to approach working with our administrators in Leo Goal and Whiteside this year?
That's awesome. Thanks for that question. And I'll answer it under one condition. I also want to know what it means to you. I can't wait to hear what transformational leadership means for you as well. So I love information. I think information is key to strong decision making, right? You got to gather the facts. I say it this way when I do leadership training, is that as leaders, we have to be experts at collecting and connecting. We have to be able to collect the dots and connect the dots. That's information. It's like information gathering, getting the full perspective is huge. I also love innovation, right? So I love innovative thinking, outside the box thinking. Like, in fact, let's just destroy the box. Who needs a box? But innovative thinking is huge. So information is valuable. Innovation is valuable. We have to be willing to try new things. But in the end, the thing that matters most, where the rubber meets the road, is transformation. You can have information. If you don't do anything with it, you'll never have transformation. You can have great ideas, but if you don't align to them over time, you will not get the results you're hoping to produce. Ultimately, you have to be transformed. For me, transformation means a couple of things. I think at its heart, probably the most powerful perspective of the idea of transformation is the idea of we are being changed. So transformational leadership is leadership that changes the game. It transforms the current reality into a better version, into something different, into something more efficient, more effective. And so here's the great challenge in transformational leadership. What I think I've discovered is that it's never a lack of information. It's like very rarely is it a lack of information. It's very rarely a lack of innovation, like innovative ideas. It's like we can have great ideas all day long. But it's often the roadblock to transformational leadership is the willingness to change. And what we know is that around 79 to 80% of people struggle with change, varying levels and degrees of, they're often slow to change. Some are change averse. There are the number of people that are actually proponents of change, like we would call change agents, is actually very low. As leaders, that's what we have to find a way to spark inside of ourselves. So for me, transformational leadership at its core is leadership that is not afraid to abandon what is for the sake of having what's better. And better isn't necessarily bigger. It isn't necessarily change for change's sake. It is genuine improvement. Like we're getting a better, more sustainable result. And at its heart, we have to be willing to abandon some of the things, as I think I heard one person say, good is the enemy of great, right? So it's like we have to be willing to abandon what seems good now for what could produce a better result down the road. So when I think of transformational leadership, that's where I land on it.
Gosh, there's so many things that you said. I have this little sign that I had next to my desk that says break the wheel. We get caught in these cycles of doing what we've always done. And in education, that's really easy to do because we all came up through the system. It's one of the few professions in the world that you could say that of, right? I can't say that since I was 5, I was working on the assembly line, but I can say I've been involved in education since a very formative age and have continued to be in those institutions to really kind of think about how do you break that cycle. That takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of empathy. It takes a lot of accountability. It takes a clear, that we always, you've talked with us quite a bit about clarity. It takes that clarity about how are we doing this? Why are we doing this? How are we going to define our you always talk about the blue line. How are we going to define those lines in our work together? And so I think it really kind of takes somebody who's willing to do that and is brave and has the courage to do that. And just that statistic that 80% of people are not, comfortable with change. I think that is that's a mantle that our leadership has to wear. Being the harbingers of change, I guess.
That's right. Well, and it takes a sequence, right? So, I mean, herein lies even the sequence of the academy. So the topics that we're going to be talking about in the academy are specifically designed to address the things that you just brought up, which is, recognizing the fact that the vast majority of the people that we lead are not going to be quick to assimilate change. Change is the proponent of advancement of progress. It's it happens every day, whether we like it or not. We're constantly transforming, but doing it with purpose and intention first requires that we're aware of where that puts an individual, right? So, for example, next week when we launch the academy, we're going to spend an entire day talking about understanding and leveraging the power of backstory. Like by the time we encounter someone, there's already a lifetime of backstory. We have to know that. We have to understand why do you present the way you do? If there's an aversion to change, if you're pushing back on this, if you're not comfortable with it, that's coming from somewhere. What's advising that? So there's a whole level of understanding and just the journey of people that we have to be aware of. And then from there, it's like, we got to understand, this is what we'll go into in the second workshop, is we'll talk about just discovering and understanding and developing our own style of leadership, right? So I lead from a certain perspective. My team knows that. They know me better than I know me. I think I'm thinking of a certain way, and they're like, that's not how you are at all. It's like, if you've ever thought you nailed it, walked into a meeting and just crushed it, like nailed it, and you walked out and everybody's still confused, that might be something you have to work on. It's not necessarily everybody else, So we have to understand and develop our style of leadership. And then from there, we begin to get this picture, right? So I know who I'm working with. I know better who I am. What culture can we build together, right? So a lot of times, like when building culture, we say, here's what the culture is going to be, and now we all got to work hard to create that. I think there's maybe a more effective way, which is, let's discover what we have to work with. And then let's let that naturally express a culture that we're willing to buy into. So once we discover a bit about who people are and we know a bit more about ourselves, now we know what we can sustain. Because sometimes we can get stuck in trying to build a culture nobody's bought into. It's like, we don't really believe in it. Nobody else really believes in it, but we're going to stick with it. And it just creates chaos. Rather than sort of, let's see what we got here. And then now let's build a culture that we can all buy into and sustain. And then from there, especially in the education arena, it's about how that translates to healthy classrooms. Like if the classroom is healthy, then the academics are going to follow. This might sound counterintuitive, but from my perspective, academic performance is a byproduct. It's not something we're trying to create. It's something that emerges, and it emerges from a healthy environment. And that healthy environment is not just inside the classroom. That's in the office. That's in the teacher's lounge. That's in the interactions that we have in our PDs. And that's like all the ecosystem that goes into it. That all working together produces the natural byproduct of academic excellence or progress. So it's that healthy classroom is built then on those first three things. And that's sort of the sequence that we're going to go through in the academy. But also, how I say, I think as leaders, those are the things we have to be cognizant of and aware of as we're trying to lean into transformation.
Sometimes we get caught up in the day-to-day, and especially at this time of year, well, to be honest, throughout the year, there are those moments where we're just surviving, right?
Yes.
So to take a moment 4 times during the course of the 2023-24 school year for leaders to take a big, deep breath and answer those questions that you've presented. Wow, that in and of itself, I think, is a great way to promote resilience, because we know our educational leaders are also feeling some of those strains that our classroom teachers and our communities are. So certainly looking forward to taking a breath and doing that work.
We're gonna have fun.
Yeah,
it's gonna
absolutely.
be great. Yeah, a lot of stuff. This is gonna be a lot of fun. We'll laugh a lot. We get to be people, right? So we get to be who we are and learn a bit more about what our passion is and how we can leverage that to, go back and create environments that we actually want to be in as leaders, because that's a major part of leadership, is like, I want to be here. It's like, I like the environment I'm in, I like the people that I'm around. And so some of that comes out of our own willingness, like you're saying, to put ourselves in an environment where we can sort of take the stuff off and let's be people. Mm-hmm. And let's rediscover a bit about who we are.
Well, Tom, I cannot thank you enough for all the work that you have done and will continue to do for not only our ROE 47 service area, our educators and our administrators, but also our very own team. I think we've all benefited from your words of wisdom and the moments where you're turning the questions back on us to be very introspective and think about our own thinking and revising that thinking. So always a joy and a pleasure to work with you. And especially this morning, I know you're so busy, but we're so appreciative of the fact that you took time out of your busy schedule to join us here on Teacher Talk to share the great work that is going to be happening here in this school year.
Honored to be here, Angie, and thank you. I look forward to seeing you all.
Facebook friends, that wraps us up for this edition of Teacher Talk. We certainly hope that you enjoyed our conversation with Tom Toney, who will be, as we mentioned, joining us here in the 23-24 school year to work with all of our area administrators on transformational leadership. So we're looking forward. Maybe Tom will touch base with you at the end of the year to find out, and maybe we'll have a few administrators join us to share what they learned, and we'll kind of get a sense of how everything went. That would be a lot of fun. As we wrap up this edition of Teacher Talk here this Thursday on Facebook, we'd like to wish you a great rest of your Thursday, an even better Friday, a relaxing and wonderful fall weekend. And we will see you right back here next Thursday on Facebook for another edition of Teacher Talk.